Well, since the door's closed, I might as well at least start with a few plugs because we got a few things going on this convention, and immediately following our presentation, if you want and you really have burning questions that aren't answered in the last 15 minutes of our presentation when I ask you guys to come up and ask questions, you can grab one of our panelists, try not to grab too hard, and maybe you can ask them some questions, and we can kind of keep the party going outside. But the last 15 minutes of the presentation, I'm inviting you all to come up to that mic right over there, and so formulate what you want to talk to us about. And immediately following this presentation right here, and as quick as I can get to it, I'm going to be doing a storyboarding demo at the Combined Art Directors Guild Costume Designers booth at booth B3 on the exhibition floor. And I think it's pretty much close to that end if I'm not turned around too much. And we've been, I would say, gifted. We've been loaned out Wacom digital drawing tools to do a little fun little thing for you. So if you want to join us there, and if you can't do it right after the panel, all through the rest of the convention, people will be doing art demonstrations there. So if you want to actually get some free tips, I encourage you to do that. Now, to get your enthusiasm up, how many people like a little TV show called Buffy the Vampire Slayer? So how would you like to meet the art department that put that on for so many years? Well, you can tonight at 7 p.m. And they're going to be at room 29 A and B, and that's the art department of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And if you can't wait till 7, you're just, they actually will be giving autographs in the pavilion, the sales pavilion, that direction, from 5:30 to 6:30 at table AA04. So you can actually see them up close in their natural habitat. And then tomorrow at noon at room 23 A, B, and C, the production designers, the Art Directors Guild, are going to be giving a presentation, and they will have autographs immediately after from 2 to 3, AAA 06 table at the sales pavilion. So if you are not taking notes but would like to find out this information later, you can follow us and everything I just said on Twitter and Instagram at ADG800 and hashtag ADG Comic Con. Okay, so we are here thanks to the San Diego Comic Con and the Art Directors Guild Local 800, the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. And I'd like to say that everybody here on this panel are the best at what they do. So you're not getting the people just starting, you're getting the best people. And not only are they excellent artists, but more importantly for film, they are storytellers. So let's have a look. Can we hit that DVD? Okay. So, I'd like to introduce the people who did all that work. We have Jane Wu, Tani Kunitaki, Andy Park, and Monty Granito. I'm Tim Burgard. Hi. Usually, the questions are usually simple because when I ask them these questions, these 3 questions, generally we can go on and on. So essentially, the first question is always, how did you get in this business? And I'd like to see if Jane could start.
Can you hear me? Yes. I totally got into this business by accident, like how everybody does.
Closer, Mike.
Mike? I do.
Not that one. Yeah.
This one? Hello? I got into this business by accident, actually. I studied fashion design, so I shouldn't be doing that. But in high school, somebody gave me X-Men. I went, what is this? And got into comic books and had a comic book store. And then fell into comic book illustrating for this stint, and then got into storytelling, and then got into animation, and got into animated storytelling or animated boards, and then took a left turn and started my career at Marvel with Avengers, and the rest of that, here I am. So I don't know how I landed here, really.
So the answer is you start at the top. All right, Tani?
Okay. As probably everybody here, we just started off drawing kind of like all our lives. And then I started off actually in industrial design. So I designed cars for like Ford and Honda, and then make my way over here to California. And then I jumped off that ship and started into animation, like designing, cars and spaceships and guns and everything for animation. And then finally, I crossed over and then started working on feature films, and I just got pretty lucky on that. Actually, I worked. I think one of my first ones was Tim.
Was that your first?
Yeah, and Batman and Robin. Right?
Batman and Robin.
So that
At
was
least something good came out of it.
It was fun to work, and I didn't know what I was getting into. But actually, the next movie I worked on after that was like one of the first, I guess, Marvel movies was Blade. So I think, and then after that, just on and on. But yeah,
you're kind of omitting a really big one. A really big one, sort of a giant M. He designed a lot of the stuff in the Matrix.
That was fun. I got to check off. I designed a spaceship.
Okay, Andy?
Hi, I started my career as a comic book artist. Got hired back in, well, I don't want to say the year, but for Rob Liefeld's Extreme Studios back in the old Image Comics days. And I did comics for about 10 years, drawing for Rob. I worked for Top Cow, drawing the Tomb Raider series, did some Marvel work on X-Men. And then I made a switch to do concept art, and my first job in concept art was working at Sony on the God of War games. And then around 2010, Marvel Studios, they decided that they wanted to create an in-house group of artists, and they had 2 artists named Charlie Wen and Ryan Meinerding. And Kevin Feige and the executives basically commissioned them to okay, let's create an in-house group of artists because we have this whole connected universe. And they called me up because I worked with them on the God of War games. So it's all, it's who you know. But yeah, so I was the first one they hired, and I've been working on all the Marvel films since the first Captain America. So for about 7+ years, so.
All right. Okay, Monty.
So I started in New York studying to be a traditional animator, and then traditional animation died around that time. And so I started to learn 3D, and luckily enough, this previs company, I didn't even know there were jobs in movies like this. And then this previs company was in New York looking for someone on this film called Stay. It was Ewan McGregor. No one watched it, but it was a job, and I took the job, and it did very badly. But because I knew that company and that job, another company had called me, and so then I flew out here with like no apartment and nowhere to be or whatever. But I had a job, and then I had to get a driver's license and an apartment, and then so I did previs after that for like 15 years, and I switched to boards and animation when they started becoming more animated, and so then I got to finally start to do more of the traditional animation stuff again, so it all comes full circle after a few years. But like yeah, it was just luck, and also just looking at every website for every possible job and stuff.
Well, I got started with painting in caves, and after a few thousand years, actually, I got started, oddly enough, in comic books, and that's hard for a person from Orange County to make any connection with New York City. So that was few and far between, but I ended up going from there to working at Hanna-Barbera and spending some time in the salt mines of the Saturday morning animation industry. And eventually, I kind of worked my way through commercials and stuff to working into live action film, and Stargate was the one that put me in the union, and after that, it's all been gravy, including Batman and Robin. Well, since we're naming names, I'd like to see if anybody has a favorite, film that they worked on. And Jane, you've got like a couple at least going on here. You got started with Avengers. Oh my God, that'd be top of anybody's list. But
I'd have to say it wasn't a film. It was actually a little TV show called Game of Thrones. I just got through working on season 7 on Game of Thrones, and it was fun because it put me together with my favorite directors and also my partner. But it was such a grueling schedule because it was my first TV show ever. But it's not really a TV show. It's they want feature quality in like this much time. So that was a real challenge. And then to work with all these to see the stunt coordinator come in and yeah, we know what to do, and this guy's gonna fall like and then just the set, the production team, and just seeing that clockwork, it was just amazing,
Did you work in more than one country, or did you?
Yeah, we were in Belfast for a long time, and then we were in Iceland.
Whoa.
So I learned something. Storyboarding for snow scene, I designed a dolly track, and the director goes, "Where are you going to put the dolly track on snow?" I'm like, ooh. All right. You don't think about things like that, but because a lot of the films we end up doing are very kind of studio contained, green screen, so we could make anything happen. But Game of Thrones is so on set that I forgot there's weather, there's elements that you have to think about,
So you had to design a snow ski shot or a snowshoe shot.
No, I think it ended up to be a camera with a very long lens, and I don't know, you can ask the director later. I forgot.
Awesome, I'm looking forward to it. I saw the first episode, I loved it. Tani, what was your favorite?
The Matrix. No, that was like a really awesome experience, and actually like it was back in the day where sometimes they send you the screenplay and then ask if you want to work on it. That's how long ago it was. Yeah, but it was a really tiny crew. There was only 10 of us in the office, and we managed to storyboard the entire film and design it, do all the concepts and everything, do all the stuff and we did this over a period of 7 months or so, and then they canceled our show. But then, maybe about 5 months later, I got resurrected. So got lucky there. And it was just a really good collaborative. Imagination was going crazy because the directors didn't want, the Wachowskis didn't want it to be done in a normal format. They almost wanted to do it in any format. We'll figure out how we're going to have the technology to do it later. So it was just pure narrative, illustrating the story out and telling that. But I think that was my favorite.
I think that's probably a lot of people's favorites. All right, Andy?
It's kind of like picking who your favorite child is. It's difficult.
We all do that.
I'll pick one.
Who we like.
I know. For me, because of my background, and I grew up in the 80s as a Marvel comic reader and a fan, and my favorite was always Iron Man and Avengers, and talking to my friend is always we're never going to see an Avengers film. It's impossible. You can't have it with all these very different, main heroes. So when I got hired in 2010, it was, even though I started working on Captain America, it was specifically for the Avengers. So I remember those first couple weeks, and I was in a little office by myself, working on the Avengers, designing. Between me, Ryan, and Charlie, we spent a week. Okay, this week we're doing designs on Captain America, and then the next week, and then Joss would look at it. Next week we're going to do Hawkeye. Next week we're going to do Black Widow. Next week we're going to do all the different characters. But there would be so many times I'd be sitting in the office painting Captain America, and then I'd be realizing what I'm doing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm working on the Avengers, and then I start painting, and then I'd get chills again and be like, I'm working for Joss Whedon, 'cause I'm a huge Buffy fan, Firefly, so yeah, that movie, and then when the movie came out and became a success, that was a really special time. So yeah, that's probably my favorite.
Okay, all right, Monty.
Mine was Captain America: The Winter Soldier. And for that one, I was the previs supervisor, and I'm not going to get into what previs is. It's just like a 3D animated version of the movie. And so the reason that was my favorite is because we got to design kind of a lot of the world. Because the first Captain America, if you watch it, there's not a lot of VFX in what Captain America's doing. It's very sped up footage kind of stuff. So we got to design how he moves. It's kind of like that. Just not super strength, but kind of still grounded in reality, because the directors were always the Russos, who I worked with on Cap, Winter Soldier, and then Civil War, and then the Infinity War. They were always try to keep it grounded and 70s and thriller for some reason. But it worked. It worked for Captain America: The Winter Soldier. And so we got to design the new way he moves. So now in all the movies, he moves in that sort of hyper-real way that still feels alive. And then we also got to design how Falcon would move, because they were well, he's got wings, so he's not Iron Man. And so we designed all this really cool stuff, and there was this producer, I'm not going to mention his name, but he looked at it and he was like, we have to dial that back. He can't be cooler than Cap. and so we had to kind of dial back how Falcon was a little bit, but he was still really cool. And then in Civil War, they kind of went off and made him awesome. But so a lot of these sequences we designed for just testing out how Falcon would fly and how he would fight with people actually became what's in the movie, the whole flying onto the thing, kicking off. They just put that in the script. And so we got to play with that, and we got to play with how to create an emotional moment out of all this fighting and destruction. And so we got to play with the whole Cap ending, and without any boards, we just kind of animated it and shot it, as he's falling into the water and Bucky looks at him and he looks up and all that stuff. It was just great. Normally previs, you don't get to play with those story elements, and so it was great. And we had up to 20 people on the job, and it was just the best job ever. Although all jobs are great and happy and important, but for me, that was we had our hands on every little piece, and it was just great.
Okay, well, as for me, I've noticed that the better the project, the worse time I have personally on it. And it runs the other way. I mean, when we were on Batman and Robin, we had 3-hour lunches. Nobody gave a crap what we were doing. Tawny actually took naps under the table. We had one person come in looking for Tawny, and we had to say, oh, we think he's in the bathroom. He was sleeping underneath the table, and we didn't want to bust him right there. And so I had a lot of fun, you know. I can't watch the movie, you know. It's 15 minutes, and that's about as much as I can go into it. And we were both on Mask 2. And that only lasted in theaters about 2 weeks out here. We spent at least a couple of months. We had a great time in Sydney. Holy crap, man. I did a walkabout. I went to, you know, Ayers Rock or Uluru and New Zealand, all kinds of stuff. I had a grand old time. It was a piece of crap. And on the other side, I worked on Jurassic World, which is my bucket list, a movie about dinosaurs. And second day there, my 65 Mustang gets crashed into and behind by a delivery truck. And, you know, my neck wasn't feeling too great after that either. So, you know, it's... So my answer is The Patriot, because I like the movie. Nothing bad happened to me. Okay, so you guys really kind of covered some of this, but I still think it's a good question, is what's the difference for you working on a comic book inspired film as opposed to any other genre you've worked on? And I mean, Jane's already mentioned she's worked on Game of Thrones, which is not exactly Avengers, you know, so do you have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, you know, coming from also a comic book background, there is a sensibility to a lot of the compositions that those of us that grew up with comic books know that we have to hit, because those are the iconic shots that we also want to see and bring to the screen. But what's interesting about working on non-comic book materials is that it's live action. Because, I mean, honestly, our Marvel films are, it's like half animated, right? So that didn't depart, or that wasn't as different as a lot of the animated films that I work on as far as shot compositions and what I can and cannot do. But when you work on Game of Thrones and it is live action, you know, you don't have a magic camera. You know, you really have to work with the type of cameras that you have. You have to know your cameras. You have to know what are available to you for storytelling. And then, so emotionally, it, excuse me, it's different because it is pure live action. I mean, the dragon is CG, that's about it. But I mean, there's no like big Hulk and there's no a guy in a suit or anything. It's all real people standing there. So I think that's the stark difference is the grounded reality versus a comic book film, which is still 1 foot in animated.
Yes, so shooting for practical purposes, boarding for practical purposes.
It's not even practical. It's also the type of take or the type of storytelling tools. It's
right.
It can't be as broad as comic book.
Right. You're in a fantasy world that you have to sell as real,
right,
as opposed to a real world that you're kind of given, and then you're just adding fantasy elements to it. So right, Tawny, how about you?
I guess like with working with comics, it's, you know, growing up and like, you know, you're growing up in the 80s with comics and you're fans of them, and then when you get a chance to work on the film, it's kind of like making sure that legacy carries on, you know, like whatever those things, you know, the stories, the characters can, what that gave you when you were a reader, you want to be able to deliver it to in this other medium that was, you know, just as important. And you know, I had fun in the last few years because I was able to work on a Homecoming, you know, and that really felt like the comic book I read back there was, you know, the young Peter Parker, you know, fighting, you know, adults. And then you had and then another title I had really fun working on was Black Panther. So that was really fun because we got to, you know, go into dark Africa and then really have these. You really have them shine there, and no, that was a lot of fun. And then and also, like, I really had a great time, like, re-envisioning or bringing a little bit over from the old comic book, the Quinjet, because I got to work on First Avengers and I got to design that thing, and pretty happy about that because they are able to use an Agent Shield and bring it over to Captain America, so I'm pretty happy about that one. But I mean, it's great. It's like, I'm a fan. I never thought that they would make these comic book movies. You know, I thought that would be impossible. And then finally, it came to an age where we were able to realize all that stuff. So.
Yeah, because you and I essentially worked on like the Adam West style Batman. You know, it's like that was what was. All right, Andy.
What was the question again?
Well, Andy, it's for you. You know, you're doing development artwork. So, have you worked on any projects besides comic book projects?
I know everything I do. I started off my career in comics, I guess video games, you know, so designing characters for video games, I guess I'll compare that
so
to
you
live
wrote more
action.
hard sci-fi type of stuff as opposed to...
Well, that one was like fantasy, like God of War, so Greek, you know, mythology.
Oh, that's awesome,
like
too.
Minotaurs and, you know. But, you know, when you're designing for video games, you can design however you want. You're not thinking about, like, how's he going to lift up his arm, you know, proportions. So working on these comic book films, live action, so much of my job is designing the costumes on real actors. So what you saw there, you know, that's the first step. You know, we design a concept, it gets approved. The other part of my job is to work alongside the costume designer, and they start, you know, making it, designing it, manufacturing it. You know, I'll go to the fittings with the actor, and then a lot of times you'll have to make adjustments because you're like, in the painting, it looks cool, but then you're like, it won't work because of this. So, you know, a lot of times I'll do paint overs, you know, on the spot we'll figure out, I think we need to adjust this in order to make so that Paul Rudd can lift up his arm, you know, that kind of stuff. So I think, you know, take into account the real actor, you know, and what looks good on, you know, because every actor has different body type. So what looks good on Paul Rudd doesn't necessarily look good on like Chris Evans. So. Yeah.
Okay. But before Monty answers, if you have questions, start lining up because we're getting to that point, and I want to see if I can get as many of you as I can, so you can answer the question. Monty, anything about the genre that?
Well, in my experience, because my work is mostly animated, and I've done a lot of stuff in non-comic book movies that's animated, where you wouldn't think it would be. So it's like we used to previs, like I did previs for 42, the baseball movie. Did a bunch of Jackie Robinson doing baseball stuff, just so we could see what the different baseball parks would look like and how many VFX shots we'd need. I did a lot of I Am Legend stuff, so it's like, so we did a lot of I Am Legend and worked out the horror and stuff. So each project, because it's animated, I feel like has a different, it's very cinematic, and the mood is very important. So because I started out as a comic book artist and I interned at Marvel until I realized that when I was interning at Marvel, comics were dying at the time. So that was like the 90s, you know, it was just bad timing all around. So I was interning at Marvel, and so like that's all I wanted to do was be a comic book artist. And so when I get on a comic book movie, it's a different hat. It's like I'm trying to be a comic book artist and do the movie at the same time. Because comic book movies, like Jane was saying, you can have a different feel to the camera. The camera's almost a character in a comic book movie. It's like alive. It can see anything. So it's like, if, you know, no matter how fast Iron Man's coming through, you can kind of catch up to him. Whereas in a movie like I Am Legend, you would give the camera much more weight, and it would have to like be a little more realistic and slow. So every live action movie, I kind of put a different director hat on a little bit to be like, oh, well, how would this director actually shoot this movie? How can the camera move through space? How fast would the characters move? And so you kind of in live action have to bring everything down and give it that weight. Whereas in comic books, you can have a little more just like, I'm a kid playing in a candy store. I could do whatever. Falcon could do whatever. The cameras can do whatever. And when you're doing something like I Am Legend or like, you know, Panic Room or something like that, it's all very planned out, it's all very structured, it's all very whatever the mood is. Like Charlotte's Web, I worked a lot on Charlotte's Web, and that mood was totally different than the mood from a Marvel movie, because even though Charlotte is a fictional character, she's alive in a live world. And whereas a Spider-Man can move faster than Charlotte can. So you know, you kind of compare all these things, and so it's really about mood.
Yeah, but Spider-Man can't give birth to thousands of little Spider-Mans.
but yeah, so that's pretty much it. The mood and weight of everything is a little different in a live action versus a comic book movie, and you just feel like more of an adult. Like I feel like I'm trying to be like the Coen brothers when I'm working on a live action movie, whereas when I'm working on a comic book movie, I'm trying to be Norm Breyfogle. You know, it's just different.
Okay, so let's get started. You can step up and ask a question.
First off, that's some really amazing work you guys have produced up there.
Can you get closer to the mic, please?
Yeah, sorry. So some amazing work. Thank you so much for presenting that today. As somebody who was kind of drugged into another discipline, compositing, how would you be able to describe kind of your transitions to other forms? Like I'd like to get into previs or storyboarding at this point. How would you talk to an artist that has a portfolio in one discipline who's looking to maybe convince somebody to let him move into another discipline?
Well, obviously, being able to do the job and showing you have some aptitude for it is part of it, and the next part of it is who do you know, and the part after that is how do I get hired, and. I'll make one little announcement for those of you who are thinking, I want to do this, but how do I, this measly mortal person, ever get to work in film? Well, if you can do the job, the opportunities now are a lot more open than they used to be. If you can get the job, even on a union show, and you're the only one who they hire that isn't already a union member, you can get the job. So having the skills is now enough if you can get in there and talk to the director or the production manager, whoever is doing the hiring at the time. The other thing would be to get involved with like Rhythm and Hues or Digital Domain or some other company. I know people who are working who at some point were hired by Lucasfilm or something like that as just working visual effects. So there are ways of doing it. I mean, obviously none of us can just say, you are now in the business. It doesn't work that way.
You're now in the business.
All right. You could talk to us later if you want to, pick our brains a little bit more. So thank you. Can we get the next person?
Hey, guys and gals. Thank you for coming out and doing this. I'm sure for me as well as everyone else, this is like a big deal. Of course, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't. But do you guys have any a drive to do any personal work, or do you have your own ideas? Because I heard a lot of you getting into this through like comic books, right? And I kind of got into it more like, I have these ideas and I really want to put them out there. So I'm just curious if that's something that you guys still pursue, or if it's something that you guys are fulfilled enough from just, making Spider-Man come to life.
Jane, you want to start with that? Do you have any personal projects that you're working on? Or?
I'm working so much, and I have a family to raise and 3 crazy dogs and a mortgage, so I wish I had time.
So if she loses a dog, she can do a comic book.
Yeah. But I think it would be nice to be able to tap into my own creative, needs or what have you. But I honestly work so much, I don't have time, though my partner and I are thinking about doing graphic novels and other things, story related. But it's hard doing a graphic novel. It's a lot of work. So no, if I like sleep more. What?
I can understand that.
Yeah. Sleep's gonna win for right now.
All right, Tiny, you have any personal projects or?
Yeah, I miss sleep. I'm working, with a producer, actress, and friend here, we're working on this project Cerulean, and it's on the side. We're doing a comic book, trying to get interest or see if we could get it published, and we're starting off on that. And it's a personal project, and we've been through like a failed Kickstarter already, and but we've got it circulating now where it's being discussed and reviewed now in some areas. But actually, a friend here, Danny Swan, is one that prompted all that. Start addressing like personal projects, and we're teaming up and trying to make that happen. Alongside all the fun stuff. And still doing this, and it's still fun. Illustrating some childhood dreams, or being able to do things you wish you could. I mean, it's great though. You're actually fulfilling something you thought you could never do in the past. So.
Andy?
Yeah, I think a lot of artists, I have stories in my head, and a lot of times in the drive home, I have an idea, and then I press record on my phone and talk to myself. But I definitely want to do my own graphic novel, my own story in the future. It's just, it is a time thing, and it's a money thing. Like, I got 2 kids as well, and I can't. It's so much work. Like, after I drew Tomb Raider, I actually started my own comic book. I drew the first issue, and then after I finished it, I lost confidence because I was like, I've never written before. Like, how do I know that this is any good, right? So I stopped, and but in the future, I definitely, would love to do something.
All right, Bobby.
I mean, and that's the thing, is that like so much of having a new project is being a writer. Like, you want to make a movie or a graphic novel or whatever, you have to rejigger yourself and kind of learn how to study to be a writer, and that's kind of the same thing with the guy who was talking about previs. And please see me after, because I could help you with a lot of things if whatever. But you always have to be if you want to go side to side or do your own project, you always have to be a self-starter, and it has to be something that you just can't go to sleep on. I do the same thing. It's like I have tons of projects, but your hand is so tired from the day of working like this all day that you don't have the almost energy or inclination to stand in front of a screen at night. So I started writing music on the side. I'll sell my CD outside. No, I'm only kidding. I don't have a CD. So I really learned and researched, because I just, a lot of these people here, and I'm sure all of you have this creative drive that you want to make something. So it's music is a little more fun, it's a little less in front of a screen, and so I write horrible songs. Maybe someday they'll be good, but for right now, it's just a creative outlet. So it's I feel like we all need to create. It's just a question of if we have the time and energy and effort and the ability to learn what we want to do.
Yeah, if you could do something that kind of renews you rather than just kind of adds to the tiredness. All right, well, I hope that answered your question. Next person up, please.
Hi, I'm a movie critic, and I just want you to know.
Oh, boo! No.
Yes, I'm on Rotten Tomatoes, all of that, but I want you to know we pay attention, and we really, really appreciate what you do. We are really aware of the contribution you make, so I want to thank you for that.
I wish somebody would speak like that to the publishers, because all I ever see is the making of these books is just the actors in and out of costumes, and that's about it.
I come to this, I don't go to Hall H, because I love you guys, I really do. I have a question for Andy. I'm a big fan of the Marvel movies, and one of the things that I like is that they're able to make such a distinctive look for each of those worlds, Ant-Man versus Thor versus Captain America, and yet we do believe they're all in the same universe. So can you tell me a little bit about how much coordination goes on in these very highly individual projects?
How much coordination goes on? Oh, between the different projects?
Okay, we have 5 minutes, so this is going to be the last question.
Oh, okay. Well,
You can answer fast. Then.
Okay. I'll try to make it fast. It comes down to Kevin Feige. The fact that I think what makes Marvel special is you have someone like that who's a visionary, who's a comic book fan, who knows the source material. So he's the glue. So he hires all different directors that all have their own flavor, their own sensibilities. But if you didn't have that kind of leader at the helm, like it would just be jumbled because everyone has their own take on, if you watch one Captain America and the next one's like completely, it's a different flavor of the Russo brothers, but it's still the same character, but he added to it. So I think it comes down to Kevin Feige.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and just to chime in, he's totally right. You need that head, because I've worked for different comic book movies at different studios that either don't trust the character or there's no head watching everything, where it's like you would say something like, this person can't be more powerful than this person, and that's totally why they've been so totally successful.
Yeah, or the decisions are made by executives who is more about money or business rather than Kevin thinks about that too, but it's really he's thinking creatively.
Okay, well, I'd like to.
You've got time.
Oh, you do have time? All right, go ahead. Speak fast.
Okay.
Starting now.
A few questions, so hopefully I can catch you afterwards. But just one broad one that a lot of people could probably use is, nowadays we're not sure what to do with our portfolios. Generalists or specified focus with our work?
I like to answer that because I'm always telling my students that you do need to focus your skill set. If you're a storyboarder artist, what makes you different? Or if you're a production designer, what makes you different? If you're a costume designer, what makes you different? And what puts you in a certain niche? Because there's so many specific genre in movies right now, and honestly, when they're looking to hire somebody, they want to know who you are and get you in a couple of seconds, because there's stacks of portfolio that you're looking at, that they're looking at. So the more focused you can be, I think the more you can stand out.
That's one piece of advice that's probably, and also interview for the job you want. I mean, if you want to be a storyboard artist, don't throw life drawing in there. Don't throw super paintings in there, because no one wants to hire somebody to storyboard with oil paints, because they don't dry fast and they get the copier gets mocked up. And okay, I want to thank my guests. And before you go, I just want to remind you that we got the Buffy panel at 7 p.m. And we have the production designers tomorrow at noon. And they're all in your program book. And if you want to come see me do a demo right after this, I'm going to be downstairs at the booth at B3. You can see it. We have the costume designers have a copy of the Wonder Woman costume. They're at the booth. And if you're a size 14, you can try it on. No, I don't know. So thank you, Jane Wu, Tani Kudataki, Andy Park, and Monty Granito. I'm Tim Burgard. Bye.